Thanks for joining us today. Today we have with us Alireza Dorfard, Head of Market and Data Services from Deutsche Börse. He came from Frankfurt. Thanks for joining us today. And also we have Velimir Rasovic, co-founder of Amixi Suisse, also join us from Switzerland or Dubai. Which one? He will tell us.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for coming in. So today, for our panel, we will be working on the institutional adoption and how the traditional players, especially the financial services, are looking the Web3 and whether it's at the tipping point or not. So first, we will go through the introductions. And the first question will be about how the past historical events happening in the market and also looking to the forward, how it's going on. So first, starting with Alireza, can you please introduce us?
Yes, of course. First of all, it's really funny that the first panel where it's about institutional adoption is two people with suits, yeah? Everybody's walking around with jogging trousers. So my name is Alireza Dorfard. I'm working for Deutsche Börse. Deutsche Börse is one of the largest exchanges in the world. We have exchanges in the derivative space like Eurex, in the commodity energy space like EEX. We do currencies with the 360T. And of course also the stocks on the German market, which are on the Xetra. Everybody knows them with the DAX. And we of course also have many other businesses, specifically also in the data space. Maybe many of you knew the Eurostoxx 50, the index that is representing European companies, which is a product of Deutsche Börse. And we also have a very, very large post-trade arm, which is responsible for settlement and custody, which is called Clearstream. So we're a financial infrastructure provider that is working worldwide with every investment bank, with every trading firm, with actually every financial services company in this world. Yeah, we have offices on every continent in that sense.
Yeah, thanks for joining again. And Velimir?
Hello, thank you. Amixi Suisse, actually, it's a Swiss-based company that actually builds a filtering solution at the intersection of, let's say, profound technologies like blockchain, banking, AI, IoT. So we have actually gathered a team that actually last 10 years was developing different kinds of solutions when it comes to blockchain, AI, and we are building something that we refer as one-stop shop for banking of the future, with a core understanding how the banking will look in the future and what is actually what actually users need. So our core focus and mission is around user-centric fitness solution where user can come and plug and play actually and utilize and manage their assets at their own terms.
Yeah, thanks. So the first part will be about considering, as Alireza mentioned, we were discussing the institutional investors are also getting into the market, and it has been a couple of years. But previous panels also showed us central banks are changing. There are certain news are going on the crypto exchange markets. So how do you see from the clients or institutional investors happened in the last 2 to 3 years? Alireza, maybe first.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think because we are interacting really with a lot of banks, with a lot of asset managers, with also a lot of, let's say, infrastructure providers in the traditional world, we see that in the last really 12 to 18 months, many of them have started small projects, right? I mean, they started projects which have nothing to do with trading of digital assets, to be honest. It's more about how do you facilitate in an institutional environment that digital assets, cryptocurrencies, but also DeFi applications can somehow be integrated into the traditional world. I mean, if you go to your bank or if you buy an ETF with an asset manager, this has the processes behind it have very, very little to do with anything that you hear in this conference. Yeah, it's very much, let's say, a built path of the past, and we now need to bridge this gap with the many of the companies building the connections to the DeFi world, with building the connections to this, let's say, crypto world. And this is something that the banks and asset managers and infrastructures are doing. I think one topic that I can see already is everybody was super afraid in the institutional world that they are too late. And the crypto winter actually gave everybody that I am talking to a little bit of peace, to be honest. Because now they are seeing that all these venture capital funded small startups are firing people, are not successful, don't have, let's say, the success. And now the institutional players think, we can take the crypto winter to actually build all of this now. We've got time now. It's not as if everybody is overhauling us. And I think this is also a sign that institutionals really are taking the movement very, very seriously.
Very interesting. So maybe we'll continue on that, forward-looking. And Velimir, especially, I know you have spent decent time in Dubai as well. So maybe from regional perspectives also, how you see the last 2-3 years.
Actually, the topic of is the Web3 at a tipping point is something that's been like lately spoken about a lot. And something, if you look at the back and zoom out and zoom in from the past and look at the patterns, is something that we call S-curve. And in technology, we have always first like step where it's innovation, where we're actually testing and experimenting. And then we have something that we say it's actually maturing of technology, creating a working product and then creating something that's a commodity product. And that's something that we refer as like S-curve. And if you look at, there's a 5, let's say, basic factors that actually will create this tipping. And I believe we are at the beginning of this tipping point. And if you look, maturity of technology, like latest merge of Ethereum, if you look what's actually happening now in the blockchain world, then a flow of the capital in 2021, we have around 32 billion VCs invested in the blockchain and crypto industry. Then if you look at the flow of the talents, you can see how many commits on GitLabs are made. So most of the developers actually are, and software engineers are moving into this area, which is one more sign of big adoption. And then at the end, we have regulatory. We have MiCA, which was signed on 30th of June. We have presidential order from the United States with like covering 50 crypto assets groups. So I believe that like we are on beginning of something that is let's say, institutional adoption. It takes time. Of course, we are, let's say, on the brink of the recession. And this, I think, recession will accelerate this adoption. And we can see that some of the big institutional players behind the curtains are actually playing, experimenting, and they should be, in my humble opinion, next 12 to 18 months, be full force joining this industry.
So thanks. So it seems like the fear of missing out, FOMO, has been passing on the institutional investors since the startups and the VCs are taking the hit. That's the one part. So forward-looking, as you mentioned also, there are some pilots and experiments going on. Which areas the efforts are mostly going on from the institutional perspective? I see a couple of interesting alliances as well. The banks are also trying to work in a new way. So how do you see the market is going on?
So I think when we talk about institutional adoption, we need to think, what does that actually mean? Yeah? It means that those of us in the population that don't just go and open a Binance account, that don't just go and start, I don't know, pulling their money from centralized exchange to decentralized. So all the people that currently are doing what they're doing, this is not about them. Institutional adoption is that the grandma goes to her bank, and then the cashier says, do you want to invest your money? And then she says yes, and then the cashier says, okay, all right, let's put 20% or 10% in crypto. This is what happens. So if we think about institutional adoption, it means that the whole infrastructure that currently exists for stocks, ETFs, derivatives, that all of this is suddenly available via the normal channels that are available for putting money in a bank, for lending, that all of this is for everybody. And I think that if we look at it, one of the key elements that I'm seeing now is that indexing providers, so if you think about an MSCI, if you think of stocks, if you think at FTSE, all of them are starting to build indices based on crypto assets. They have the top 5 crypto assets, they follow Bitcoin, they follow ETH, they do sustainability-based, so no proof of work, and then now come the asset managers, so the large BlackRocks, the large pension funds, and suddenly they say, look, we want to invest actually 5%, 2%, 10% of our assets into crypto. And then the wheel starts moving. Because we're not talking about just, let's say, a couple of 100,000 that people have in their bank account. We're talking about all the people that invest into the future of actually them having a retirement. Yeah. And this is when really the movement is going to pull the trigger, and we're going to see billions and trillions of money coming into crypto, even if it's only 5% of the assets today. And I think this is what we are seeing. I mean, you said it very, very well. The prototypes and then people starting to really put this into place. I think we're now at the prototype stage. And I personally would say tipping point means it's going to take another 2 to 3 years until we're really there. Yeah. So I don't expect anything happening super fast.
Yeah. But I think institutional investors are coming slow, but very big as well. So the wave is certainly there. So maybe Velimir, especially building on top of it, from the experiments and the tests, like, do you see any specific area or the use cases is going on, especially considering the different product lines?
So I think that DeFi and DAOs and I mean NFTs and metaverse, actually, it's all getting like, let's say, more adoption. But where actually lies real issue, in my view, I think the birth of the crypto was out of the last big recession, 2008, 2009, right? And a lot of people that actually created this wave, they took an anarchic approach, which was like, we don't need anyone, we don't need regulatory framework, we don't need laws and regulation around it. And that's why it took so long that actually create some wave and start having some signs of mass adoption. In my humble opinion, like, in order to have these use cases adopted, we have to have a regulatory framework. Otherwise, we're going to have cases, unfortunately, I will use the name, but FTX, if you look like how many people suffered from Luna, FTX, it's all because we don't have actually a regulatory framework where we actually can prevent this and secure that actually our users then don't lose their assets or they don't lose their value that some of them have been working hard for because they enter in the market due to hype, not because be a real value behind these projects. So I believe more laws and more regulatory framework being developed will allow us to have a more adoption where our grandmas, and this is actually what we at Amex are aiming to do. One of our first products is actually a financial terminal that we can actually create this mass adoption, so any kind of, let's say, liquid token that actually passed our due diligence, people can actually cash in, cash out, actually can have first sign of it and physically touch, physically feel what's actually behind that value, and actually not only virtual. Because if you look now, a lot of people invested in Luna, it went to zero, right? A lot of people invested in FTX, went to almost less than $2. So this all is happening because we don't have a framework that actually protect the users. And I'm not on the side of regulatory. I'm quite opposite. I'm one of the first one where Vitalik was creating actually Ethereum. We were there and we were talking about this, and we went to SEC and they told us, you have to stop, you can't do it, and we went to Switzerland, then Ethereum was burned. But all of that was actually innovation. But hand in hand, we have to work with regulatory, because that's the only way how we can create the waves and mass adoption. Because people want to feel secure, not only to have something that is, let's say, fast and let's say cost efficient, but they want to feel secure that their assets are safe. So that's why I believe that we need, in order to, like say, have more adoption, we need to talk more with regulators and actually approach them and find solution how we can work around it. Because at the end of the day, what they're trying to do, they're trying to monitor and prevent some suspicious activity. Anti-money laundering, it's something that actually they are the most concerned about, right? And they know who is actually behind these assets. And if we provide them the right approach and tech, we can actually be enablers and create this wave that will lead to mass adoption.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Actually, it's an interesting point because institutional investors are also very close to the regulatory bodies and also checking how well they can also take the fiduciary duties to the also limited partners as well. So from regional perspective, maybe it will be good to a bit deep dive how you see the international regionally regulation and also institutional adoption is following on. Maybe starting again, Alireza.
Yes. So I mean, MiCA, as you said, has now been, let's say, finally drafted. I mean, it's coming into effect only later. But what MiCA is missing is the whole DeFi part, right? I mean, the CBDC part and the crypto asset part is regulated now, but the DeFi applications from lending, saving, all of this is completely out of scope.
Yeah.
And this will take another 4 to 5 years until we actually have European regulation that is covering this. So the US might take a little bit of a different approach. Yeah. So it might be possible that we then have a more holistic view. But there, I mean, there is a fight between, is it I don't know, a commodity oversight or is it a security oversight? So also there, not even the regulatory bodies are in line of who actually does what. So to be honest, I think that if we only look at the crypto asset side, yeah, then, as I just said, I believe saving and actually putting money on exchange-traded nodes that are backed by asset managers that are physically investing into crypto assets is going to be something that the regulatory framework allows, and that is also going to drive the institutional discussions with regulators. And one thing that we're not allowed to forget is that custody solutions are one of the most important aspects of the regulation in that space. Because what we really see is that not everybody is so clever to have an ETH account or be on Polygon and at the same time on Avalanche and actually move money from different DeFi blockchains. The typical investor has no clue. And the typical investor also doesn't want to take care of any kind of keys. They just want to have an account. They want to go there, they want to have a PIN, they want to get their money or put their money in it. And therefore, it is very, very important that, because I heard a lot on this conference that everybody should forget the central exchanges and everybody should forget the central infrastructures and everybody has to go DeFi. That's the only solution possible. And I think that for many people, maybe this is the case, but for the majority of people, this definitely is not the case. Yeah? So therefore, MiCA and also what is planned, let's say, in the US, is going to give institutional players the framework to provide these services to their customers. And from a regulatory point of view, therefore, I mean, you said it very, very well. I don't want over-regulation, but we need regulation that just governs how people play. And from all the crises in the past, I don't need to name them anymore, we see that it's super necessary. Yeah,
super nice. So maybe, Velimir, especially thinking on the, again, regional perspective, do you see any differences between the regions? So, and I also know you are coming to Turkey as well, having an interest, so how you see it?
I spent last 10 years living in Dubai, and I have been witnessing, and this actually conference reminds me of 2016 in Dubai, when everything started. And again, like, patterns are always repeating, and I agree with Reza in everything you said, but what we are actually missing the most is actually education. So we need to actually educate regulatory, we need to educate masses, we need to educate institutions, we need to educate first why it's done the way it's done and what can be changed and what can be done better, more efficient, and what can actually drive this mass adoption is education more than anything. Because regulatory will listen. If we have a right approach and we tell them what we're trying to solve and how we're going to solve it, and to be compliant, what are their needs, actually, we will be the one creating. But as you said, like from the regional perspective, like Dubai in 2016 was something similar like this blockchain, Istanbul Blockchain Week, and then it took a couple of years until actually started something happening within the government and institutional learning started happening. Some of them started listening. I spent hours and hours explaining, telling them this is not a playground for criminals, for money laundering. There is a ways, there is a means, there is technology that can monitor, that can prevent, that can allow this. And then they start listening, they start educating themselves. But still it took 3-4 years until they started talking about it. And then next 2 years, first, let's say, a law that was brought there, and they start issuing the licenses. But still, we are not there yet, because we didn't cover, as you said, MiCA, even like, let's say, markets in crypto assets, as we refer in the European Union, that this law doesn't cover the DeFi, as you said, and this is one of the issues. But we need to work with them, we need to educate them, and we need to create, let's say, platforms where we can provide them the knowledge so they can understand why we can benefit from it, and what are the significant challenges derivated out of the current status, and what we can do in a near and far future better. Because I believe that we are on the, let's say, on the brink of the fifth, let's say, industrial revolution, and it's been led by actually blockchain and AI, and this is something, it's beginning, it takes time, it will evolve, but we need to create more tools to educate, let's say, our, let's say, institutional and regulatory bodies.
Yeah, thanks. And since you mentioned education, I think one piece that I maybe want to follow up, you mentioned maybe right now three of us are maybe the only ones with the more like the serious look here among the crowd outside as well. So where these institutional investors are getting educated, or how they spend on the networking, and how the information is flowing among them. There are tests, but how they are thinking on it.
That's a very, very good question, to be honest. Yeah, because in the last 12 to 18 months, many institutionals that actually hired people that should help them to do their digital asset strategy got exactly these personnel headhunted from VCs that are investing in startups and promising them coins and so on. So I think if you look at the market now, of course there are a few in all of the different banks and financial institutions that know exactly what actually the blockchain is. Yeah. I think, but let's be honest, I think 95% of the executives that talk about blockchain and DeFi actually don't even have an ETH account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, so 95% of them have never maybe even done a transaction in a centralized exchange. Yeah. Never have they, let's say, moved funds to let's say, a decentralized exchange. They don't even know what an automatic market maker is. Yeah. So I mean, if you have these kind of people, then it's clear that that things are not moving fast. But you said, how does information sharing work, right? I think one topic is that we always have to see that information is the seed for then a flower of whatever is able to grow, right?
Well said.
And I think the main topic currently is that if you look at the traditional space, every traditional player has a Bloomberg or a Refinitiv terminal, yeah? And if you look at Bloomberg, they only cover a very limited amount of coins properly. Yeah? Refinitiv is, let's say, beefing up. There are small aggregators in the space, like, I don't know, a Coinmetrics, a Kaiko, a Crypto Compare, and we at Deutsche Börse, because we have bought a custodian and broker, a crypto broker in Switzerland, we have developed, let's say, first prototypes on settlement and custody on the post-trade side in the last 12 months. We are creating indices based on crypto assets, and actually we're starting our own crypto exchange for institutional players, and not for cash and derivatives. But the point is, all of this needs data. Yeah. And what we have, I mean, we actually pulled from all the centralized exchanges the data. I mean, it's super easy to actually pull the data, combining it, parsing all of the information, and finding out where outliers are is actually the harder part. And what we have now built for our institutional customers is actually an aggregated, centralized and decentralized exchange feed that we also give to vendors. So the Bloombergs, Refinitivs partially take it from us, yeah, to be able to provide this to players. And what is important is that the DeFi space, I mean, not everybody is able to read transactions coming from the blockchain. So we translate all of this into market data similar to what a Bloomberg and Refinitiv actually offers. And we aggregate all of this. So these are examples, just one example, but how we, as for instance an exchange, help institutional players that can't go everywhere and aggregate everything to get it simple in the same way that they are getting it today. So if you think about, let's say, the question that you asked, where do we see information sharing? It's examples like these. And there are others out there that do this for instance, let's say everything about corporate actions, yeah? I mean, there are players out there that currently do it when there is a stock split. They inform the capital markets about it. But I mean, what happens now when a DAO actually does a decision, yeah? And it's super important for somebody who's holding, I don't know, a certain altcoin, yeah? Then there are information providers now out there that are providing this to institutional players. Or for instance, Blockworks, I don't know if you know them, they're a research-based company. I mean, if you go out and have, let's say, all the research analysts that are covering a stock, now Blockworks is coming and doing research based only on certain, let's say, coins. And these are the services which are proliferating information and where we now see that all the institutional players are buying this information. They are going to Blockworks and paying 15,000 euros a month to actually get this. They're coming to us and paying, let's say, money to actually get all this information. And this is how you see that this is the seed where from that, everything is going to grow, yeah? So that's why I'm seeing that something's really happening.
So, yeah, well said. Especially when you mention, I think, so it is more how this information is getting into their decision processes then.
Yes.
And you need to be readily available, so they should see the facts and also combine the knowledge, not solely, but as a combined, balanced way of it. So, yeah. Thanks a lot, and I didn't know the new features, so I will check it out for sure. And also on the decisions, what you want to add also?
So just coming back to your questions, which you were saying, how currently education going on regarding the regulatory and institutional bodies, I will just take one example where I was involved. Like when IBM started looking at blockchain, they compiled 100 million and created research which was the birth of Hyperledger or Fabric, what it's called, one of the biggest enterprise blockchain now in the world, which was never tokenized due to, again, regulatory issues. But what I try to say now with that, actually, it's most of the players, institutions that came in the game, they experiment, they tested, and most of them, they failed. And a reason for that is because we have more conferences currently ongoing where the projects are actually promoting themselves rather than educating the regulatory. So I believe that on conferences like this, we should have Minister of Finance, we should have a Minister of Innovation and Technology, we should have all the bodies that needs to hear this information and educate, then transfer to their departments, and then they can create these decision-making processes. But first, they need to gather this, because if you go on internet, you type on Google, what is a blockchain? You're gonna get like thousands approach. And they get confused along the road, and they say, listen, better we not touch it than get involved and get messy. So this is what we need as leaders of this industry needs to join and create a way where they can invite them to participate. So I would like to see the panels where we have somebody who would actually tangle the questions and ask us, this is what we are facing, this is what we will see. And then, not that at that moment we have maybe solution, but we'll be born out of that solution. So this, as a leaders, we need to pay attention more to and actually empower more leaders to come together, invite them to join the journey, create together the framework, create together this regulatory approach where they can actually cover the needs, what they need to cover, monitoring everything, where central banks are actually putting pressure on different bodies. And then out of that, we can derive different kind of solutions, technologies, and then actually create the waves and create the massive adoption.
So, thanks a lot, Velimir. Actually, then we have the invitations for the next years from the ministries, from Velimir, to joining more and also increasing the engagement. So, since we are coming to the end of the time, maybe for the closing remarks, what you want to share with our crowd is thinking on the institutional investors and how you think the market will go, and what should be they are taking out with them today?
Wow, that's a... So maybe if there's one thing that I think that the audience, but every one of us who maybe believes also in the crypto and DeFi space needs to do is to, when you talk to people who are skeptic, and because there are so many skeptics out there, you can't be the rainbow and dream person, right? Because I mean, I see so many people also on this conference that are building, let's say, castles made of glass. And if there is somebody coming with just a hammer and then hitting that, it shatters immediately.
First scale, everything is gone.
It's really, so the point is that have realistic expectations of what you tell people about how things are going to develop. Because if you don't do this, then the trust that every one of us actually has to bring to the traditional market is not going to happen. Yeah? And I mean, we have to see that there have been a lot of things that failed, but there are also a lot of good things in the DeFi and crypto space. And it's important to just highlight, and this is realistically and honestly, what is happening. And if we do that, every one of us, I think then we can take the steps. But don't come with, I don't know, I have this new DeFi project and I'm going to revolutionize how aviation and, I don't know, DeFi works. This is like stuff that, it's such a long shot, nobody believes it. It's like time travel, yeah? Nobody believes it's possible. And if you tell them it is, they're just going to take every credit that you said in left and right away from you. So be realistic. This is, let's say, my closing remark.
Thanks.
Mrs. Zulema, very good question, actually, but this is the message both for like retail investors and institutional investors. I would say do your homework, do your research. Before you start involving in anything, first gather information. And then if you don't know, ask. If you don't know how to ask, then you find somebody who is specialist in it, gather the information, do your homework, do a research, find out what is the necessary information that you have to have, and then actually start playing. Because it's same like you never drive the car, you sit and drive the car. Most probably you're going to have a crash. Most probably. So this is what currently is going on. This market is driven by the hype, pumps and dumps, and this all unrealistic dreams and people that overpromise, underdeliver, people put their valuable assets in it, and then unfortunately we are facing different kind of rejections, even from regulatory. And the good, again, good cases is the big players, and I believe that a lot of these decentralized projects that they claim that they're decentralized, they're far from decentralized, and we are in every kind of, for me, even the Bitcoin is just, let's say, a little bit decentralized. But guys, look out, AI is coming, and quantum computers in Silicon Valley being developed. So I think that like you should stay ahead of the curve and do your homework, find out what's going on, and prepare for, let's say, a new adoption. And AI will be leading next round where all these dreams may fall apart. So take care of your valuable assets.
Thank you, guys. So as we can summarize, institutional investors are just warming up. The fear of missing out is past, so they are coming in, and they are getting the information more readily available and accurately with the integration of the decision parts. So if we will be more realistic and do our homeworks, the next 12 to 24 months could be really interesting. So guys, thank you so much. Hopefully we will see you next year as well for another topic and see how the adoption will continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you. Thanks.